we've got a lot more content that's available for free, right? We've always had our Anglers Club, which is kind of the high end, really deep dig or deep dive content. That's still there, but we're starting to do a lot more just public content, short little 15, 20-minute seminars that just focus on one topic, so everybody can kind of get started. Completely new design, lots of cool stuff. We have a lot of our stuff that we used to do on DVD now is moved to our on-demand, so you can, for less money, you can download and watch them anytime you want to do them. We offer an all-in program. You can buy all of our digital stuff for $250, and you have year access to everything we've ever done, which is pretty cool. Last year, we kicked off the Detroit River definitive course, which actually is my 35 years of experience on the Detroit River. Another buddy of mine that's been guiding down there for 30 years. We brought Ali Shakur in with his science background. So there's about 80 years of Detroit River experience in Ali, and what we did is we talked about how the Detroit River works. Migration routes in and out of the river, what fish do when they get in there, how will they come in. There's 3 basic ways in from Lake Erie, and depending on which way they come in determines where they're going to spawn, where they're going to move, how far upriver they're going to go. So we really dug into the science of how the fish come in, how they move throughout different times of year. We did a little section focusing just on trophy walleye. So a lot of that little deeper dive stuff is, put together more classes that guys can buy. There's a lot more free content going on. So yeah, it's always good to get in the studio and create content, but it's really cool to be out and talking to people live. Staring at that camera and just talking to the camera gets old after a while.
Yeah. Makes you feel a little old.
Yeah, it's not the same. When you can do a seminar, you look at somebody, sure, and you can see, we did the sonar seminar today, and we can see people's eyes light up, and you kind of know what's going on. That's a whole different deal than just talking to a camera where you just don't have that interaction. So it's nice to get back out and actually see a lot of people and talk, talk fishing. So that's what I love to do. So it's kind of nice to be able to do it again.
Yeah, that was something I wanted to talk to you today about, was the Detroit River.
Yeah.
It's the Great Lakes Fishing Podcast. The Detroit River obviously isn't a Great Lake, but it's really part of that system.
Yep.
And can you tell us just a little bit about kind of how that system lays out and how it works and how you do your thing?
Yeah, so Detroit River, actually Detroit in French actually means the strait. That's what it means. So Detroit River is actually the connection between Lake St. Clair and Lake Erie. So what we have found out over the years with studying a lot of the new tracking stuff, we have kind of found out that Lake Erie, Detroit, Lake St. Clair River, and Saginaw, Lake Huron, all the way up around the thumb to Saginaw Bay, is one system. These fish aren't Detroit River fish. They're not Lake Erie fish. They move all over. So you may have a fish spawn one year in Saginaw River. Next year, that fish may spawn in Lake St. Clair. Next year, it may spawn in a reef in Lake Erie. The next year, it comes up the Detroit River to spawn. So these fish are very nomadic, a lot more than we thought. So what we're trying to do there is we're trying to capture the fish movement as they move up from Lake Erie into the Detroit River or down from Lake St. Clair into the Detroit River. So we got fish coming both ways. It's a great fishery. We catch a lot of fish every year, 15 to 20 fish every year that are 10, 11, 12 pounds. Most of our trips, we do 5-hour trips twice a day. Most of our trips, it's very easy to get your 24 fish that are 2 to 5 pounds. That's kind of the bread and butter.
They're good eaters.
They're good eaters, yeah. It's fairly simple. It's all vertical jigging. I do all hands-on vertical jigging. Some guys pull bottom bouncers as the season wears on, but I like to vertical jig. Now we got a new casting jig, so we're doing some casting trips, but the vertical jigging thing is the key. Keeping the boat straight, moving your boat downstream at the same speed and direction as your jig is going, keeping your line perfectly vertical, moving that jig up 4, 5, 6 inches and dropping it nice and slow. That way when the fish hits, you got a rod in your hand, you know what's happening. Everybody kind of likes that kind of fishing. So great fishery if you've never done it. The boat control takes a little bit to learn because you got to be very, very precise with your boat control. I tell people all the time, if you got to think about, by the time you go, oops, you've already missed it. You're way past it. You have to be ahead of the curve. So, if you want to come down the first time, hire a charter, let them tell you how to do it. But it's 32 miles of river. At the widest point, it's a touch over a mile wide at its widest point. Most of it is less than that. Canadian line, the U.S. Canadian line runs right down the middle. So we encourage people to have both a U.S. and a Canadian license because you can catch the wrong watercolor on the American side, either too clear or too dirty, and 10 feet away from you across the line, everybody's catching fish. So It's a really cool experience. It's really neat. Detroit, the town of Detroit, everybody else, ooh, Detroit, right? Town of Detroit is about 2.5 miles of river. That's it. The rest of the river, specifically downriver, is what I call river towns. They're these little towns that have 5, 6, 8,000 people, and they just run into each other. So you have a town and a little gap in a town. It's just all these little really cool niche towns. And if you're worried about Detroit, that's not what it is, right? Like I said, downtown Detroit's only about 2 miles of the river. The rest of it is really cool. Towns like Niagara Falls, just little niche towns, and it's a really cool place to visit. There's lots of history on the Detroit River. And if you want to come and take a vacation and bring the kids and the wife, there's lots of museums and lots of really cool things to do in the Detroit area. So it's definitely a place to visit. Don't believe the news.
Yeah.
You're not going to get shot coming to Detroit. Lots of cool things to do.
Tell me about where are your clients coming from to go fish with?
So it's a good mix. I have a couple groups that come from Iowa every year. I got some guys that come from Kentucky every year. We got some Wisconsin guys. I have a group that comes from Pennsylvania every year. Most of my guys, though, are Michigan guys, and most of them can fish on their own. They hire me so they don't have to do the work. They go with their buddies. Now I'm doing all the work. They just show up. They go fishing. They can laugh. They can joke. They don't have to run the boat. They don't have to pull their boat over. So a lot of my customers are Michigan people that fish, have their own boat, and could do this. They just like to take a day and just have a good time. And I like to think it's my personality that brings them back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what? I'll agree with you there. A lot of the fish is the bonus.
Yeah. It's not about dead walleye, my
No,
mom says, yeah.
You go out and have a good time and mesh with your people on the water and have a good time. Fishing.
Yep.
Just good vibes, good fishing.
Yep.
And I really believe that. If you go out and have a good time with the people, the fishing's going to be good. They're going to want to come back. They're going to recommend you to other people.
Yep.
And that's how you grow.
Yep. I look at it as I'm just going fishing with 4 of my buddies.
Yep.
Even if I've never met you before, we're gonna be friends before we're done. And it's always funny as a charter captain. You always try to find the one guy. There's always one guy in group that's kind of the kicking post. You try to find that guy, right? Because you want to jump in there with them too, right? And then they come back the next year, and then you try to go, okay, I got to give old Steve a break here.
Right.
I'm going to pick on the next guy, the first guy that screws up, and now Steve's your good buddy now. So I love it.
Too.
Yeah, it's just it's just a good time, right? If you provide an experience, the fish usually come, and the fish are a bonus. Right? I get people all the time. Look, if you're just coming for a cooler full of fish, we don't allow drinking on the boat. We, that there's reasons for that, but if you're just coming for a cooler full of fish, don't hire me. That's not what we're doing. That's not. And there are guys on the river who basically they fish. They leave the dock at 6:30, and when they get their fish, they're done. They commit. And down on the Canadian side, there is no limit as far as size goes. So they'll run over the Canadian side, and anything that's over 13 inches, they'll keep. And you can leave the dock at 6:30 and be back in the dock at 7:15 with your 24 fish. It's that simple sometimes. We don't do that. You book me for 5 hours, you get 5 hours. We're done fishing. We get our fish at 7:15. Let's go try something else. Let's go look for different things. We've got 4 nesting eagles on the Detroit River, section of Detroit River. The second largest blue heron rookery east of the Mississippi River is on the Detroit River. We have 2 osprey nests on the Detroit River. We have 3 nesting pairs of loons on the Detroit River. So there's lots of things to go do, to go see, try other places to fish, maybe try to catch a big fish.
Yeah.
There's lots to do in that 5 hours.
Basically, what you're telling me though is it's a lot of boat control is really key.
Boat control, all of it. Yep, all of it. So we teach it as what we call follow your line. Everybody wants to point into the current, but the whole idea is if your jig is vertical, if you're fishing current and your jig is vertical, it's going downstream at the exact same speed and direction that natural food is brought to a fish. So it looks right. So what you do is you get your jig to the bottom, and then whatever way your line goes, you just drive your boat that way. The whole thing is making small, quick adjustments on your boat to keep your line straight up and down. If it's straight up and down, it's looking natural. And if it's ahead of you, you're dragging, and we have a saying called if you're dragging, you're snagging, because now your jig to the bottom, you really can't feel. And if it gets too far ahead of you, it usually lifts up off the bottom, so you're not making bottom contact. So, you're trying to keep your line in a circle about the size of the bottom of a solo cup, and it takes a lot of really quick adjustments. I make adjustments. I run a Motor Guide XI5. It's electric trolling motor, electric steered, so I use a remote. and I hit a button about 30 to 35 times every minute. So I'm constantly making little small changes.
Yeah.
And it's, for some people, it's hard to learn, right?
It sounds hard.
It's hard. Yeah. Especially you're down there, you're trying to catch fish, you're trying to figure out where you're at, you're trying to learn the water. I get guys that want to learn how to do it. We got lots of spots that are just sand, and we can fish forever and never lose a jig. And you just teach them it's a lot better to make a lot of short, quick moves than it is to make bigger moves. And that's the biggest thing to learn. So just getting your line to the bottom and just following
Still
your line.
talking about
Drive your
fishing?
line. Yeah.
35 maneuvers with his thumb,
Yeah.
short moves.
Yeah.
You married?
I am married.
She's a lucky lady. I can tell you that.
By the time I get back from fishing season,
Yeah.
my thumb's worn
I
out.
mean, come on.
I can't even use
Think
it.
about the endurance. This guy, forget about it.
Thumb is about that big, right?
Whoa. She is a lucky lady.
And you use, somebody's popping on here right now, you use a pontoon boat to do this.
So I do not on the river. The pontoon I use for my trolling trips.
Okay.
On the river, I have a 20-foot bullet trap.
Okay.
Only because, not because my Angler Quest would be a great trolling boat. I can't get my Angler Quest into my slip. I have a slip down there, and I can't. It's about 23 feet between the back of my motor and the back of the guy behind me, and my pontoon is 26 feet long plus the motor. There's no way I can get it in the slip. So, and I like the river. I do a lot more running in the river than I do on the lake. The lake is usually 3 miles out and we're fishing. I may start my day in the river. I dock mid-river. I may run 18 miles up to bottom of Lake St. Clair. The water might be dirty. I may run all the way back down to Lake Erie. So I may put 40, 50 miles on my boat, on a trip, in a 5-hour trip. Well, it's a lot easier to do that at 50 miles an hour than it is at 30 in the pontoon. So that gives me a little more flexibility, right, to move up and down. And it is a little easier to control, but it's an absolute riot to fish. I see Mark says the hard work. Yeah, Mark, book the chart in. I'll do all the work, and you just catch all the fish.
Detroit River sounds like hard work. Sounds like that to me.
That's why you hire me, Mark. Hire me. I'll take you fishing. You don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
So
you do the Detroit River thing, and you talked about you do some trolling out in Lake Erie as well with the Angler Quest. Tell me about those trips.
So we're down Detroit River right until right before Memorial Day. We usually start the last week of March. We're there till Memorial Day. Take a couple days off, and we start on our Saginaw Bay. Our summer trolling is on Saginaw Bay, not very far from my house. And then we go down to Lake Erie in the fall for trophy fishing. And that's a riot, too. So on the pontoon, I can get 6 people on the pontoon. Most days we're running 16 rods. We run 7 offshore boards on a side and down rod on each side. So we got 16 lures going, lots of people. The pontoon is fun because there's a lot of room. So it's a center console, and I've got as much room in the back of my pontoon as a lot of guys do on some of the smaller salmon boats. Ton of room back there to work. All my customers are up front. They like sitting up front, and they just stay up there. Then when it's time to catch fish, they just come to the back. They reel the fish in, net it, and they go back up front and they have a snack and hang. Look, and the other thing about the pontoon, you cannot be unhappy on a pontoon. There's no way you can be unhappy on a pontoon.
Right.
So I never have pissed off customers because we're on a pontoon.
Yeah.
I think they made a song about that.
They did make a song about that.
I actually
It's just attitude.
had a pontoon. I'm going to tell you, I had pontoon envy. There's something about it. I will tell you, that was an older one, and it wasn't good in 3 to 4 footers. Kind of sketchy running back into them, but pontoons are a good time. They really are.
I run a 26-foot Angler Quest built for fishing. It's called a Pro Troll, specifically designed for trolling. 26 foot long, it's 26 feet inside the rails, and a 2-foot depth extension up front. That moves some of the weight back a little bit. That helps the boat. But it's funny to have people look at you when you go out on a pontoon, and they're getting much more popular, right? I mean, they multiply, they just about double in number every year, and there's a lot of them now. But I run by guys in big waves. I'd rather be in my pontoon because I'm on top of them. I've got 3 28-foot keels, right? So the boat doesn't get blown off. So one of the things you hear about a pontoon is, well, you get blown. No, you don't. If you've got a regular boat, you've got 1 keel. It doesn't take a lot to move that 1 keel, right? I've got 3 keels. I've got 3 28-foot keels. You can't push it. I tell guys, hey, take a bicycle and ride through an obstacle course. It's pretty easy. Try a tricycle. It's a lot harder to move those 3 wheels. That's what the pontoon does. So what I can do in the pontoon that I can't do in a regular boat, even with autopilot, is I can tack the waves. I can tack I can attack a wave 45 degrees into it and stay straight if that's the right way to go. Fish hawk tells me that's the right way to go. I can do that. Whereas my regular boat, I'm constantly fighting, yawing back and forth.
Nice
so
plug. See that?
See how we worked it in?
That's good.
Yeah.
Professional. That was awesome.
I do, baby.
I like that. That was good. Guy's good.
That's what I do.
I mean, he's a walleye guy, but he's still good. You know what I mean? I don't know when the last time you heard a scream and drag, but he catches a lot of walleyes.
Screaming drag, I know we're stuck.
Stuck on bottom.
There you go. There you go.
Yep, he had a dragger.
Tell me about what you got in your
Yeah, so this is our new casting jig. So, casting is becoming a big deal, and it's a lot of fun, right? To cast as opposed to jig or especially troll. So casting has become a big deal. So we wanted to build a jig that did a couple things: slides through the weeds, allowed you to fish swim baits through the weeds, but also worked through the rocks, allowed you to snap jig trolling, and allowed you to cast it. So what we did is we took our vertical jig. I just took that basic design, it touched the current very well. It's got a flat bottom, so when it sits, hook up. And we just, different hook on it, a little tweak to the head design, nose out the front, or the line tie out the front, so now it's a casting jig. Craig Sleeman has used it a lot. One of the couple things he said about it, he goes, the profile on forward-facing sonar is amazing. So it's the right amount of mass, it's the right size. If you're fishing forward-facing sonar, it's very easy to see. And he's fished it through weeds, rocks, sand. He loves it. We had to do a little tweak when we first got it. If you lifted it and dropped it, it would come too far forward. The tail of the body would hit the line. So we had to kind of change some of the balance of the jig. So now it falls at about a 45-degree angle. So you don't have any of that. So we just took the design that's worked for us for a lot of years on the Detroit River, our custom thumb jig, and we just turned it into a casting jig. So we're pretty excited about it.
People want to pick up one of those or find out more about it, where do they go?
TeachinFishin.com. At the top of the page, there's a store link. They can click us.
Well, thank you, Lance.
Yeah, always good to see
Appreciate
you,
you stopping in.
Awesome,
buddy.
pal.
Appreciate it.
Good luck this weekend. Enjoy the school, and
Can't wait.
should be really good.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, sir.
See you.